Good day, and for today's discussion, we will talk about academic communication. And according to Learn.org 2020, academic communication is also called scholarly communication. It refers to the method of communication that are highly structured and generally only used in pedagogical settings. It involves presenting ideas effectively and formally in scholastic environment. Academic communication. From the word itself, academic, it is the communication that we use in schools and academic environment. So if we talk about academic papers like essays, reflections, and research papers, all of these papers are examples of academic communication because it includes words and structures that is used to express ideas as well as methods by which ideas are disseminated. And since we're already talking about academic communication, then we have to dig deeper and learn on how to serve its purpose. And of course, we use the academic writing styles. And to make it easier, you just have to remember the word FISH that stands for our styles for academic writing. So F stands for formality, I for impersonality, S for structures, and H for hedging. So first, let's talk about formality. So for the formality of academic papers, don't use contractions. Contractions like aren't, isn't, didn't, or don't. Instead, use the full spelling terms or words for the formality of academic papers. Don't use colloquial language or slang, and always write concisely as you can. So go straight to the point and avoid using slang words so that the readers can easily understand your point. Write concisely but precisely. So next is generally avoid phrasal verbs. So phrasal verbs are verbs that are composed of two words, but we must avoid using it in academic papers. Instead, use its one-word counterpart. So instead of using carry on, use continue. Or instead of using find out, use discover, because that would sound more formal. Avoid common but vague words and phrases. Avoid overuse of brackets. Don't use exclamation marks or dashes. Avoid direct questions and don't use etc. Avoid using vague words and always be mindful on using the right punctuation marks because it is very important in academic papers or in academic settings. And don't use etc. because remember, we're doing academic papers and not casual conversation. Always use capital letters appropriately and never use type of language used in texting. Because using all capital letters in writing indicates that you are shouting. So you have to use the capital letters appropriately and capitalize only the first words of the sentence or proper noun. Next, an academic paper should observe impersonality. So generally avoid personal language. Personal language like I, we, you, us. Avoid first and second person point of views of pronouns because it will sound very personal. And never use emotive language. Be objective rather than subjective. And avoid being too dogmatic. Do not sound like you are preaching praise or like you're accusing someone. Always focus on your main objective and don't let your emotion takes place in your academic papers. And remember, it's going to be more objective if we don't use emotive language. Consistently use evidence from your source reading and reference this correctly. In short, give credits and always cite your sources. Avoid sexist language. Avoid he or she, himself or herself, and etc. So instead of using he or she or he alone, use they. Next up, we have the structure. So make sure you write in complete sentences. So always have subject and predicate in your sentence to make it complete. Divide your writings up into paragraphs. Dividing your writings into paragraphs shows that you are organized and it makes them look reader-friendly. Use connecting words and phrases to make your writings explicit and easy to follow. It must have coherence and cohesion to connect your words. Check your grammars and spellings carefully. Always double check your work. And lastly, use normalizations and passives. And to complete the academic writing styles, we have hedging. First is the use of impersonal subjects. So instead of saying, I believe that time management is very important, use it is believed that time management is very important. Use passive verbs. Focus on the receiver of the action instead of the doer. Use verbs such as imagine, suggest, claim, or suppose, especially if you're not sure about it. And use attitudinal signals such as apparently, arguably, ideally, strangely, and unexpectedly, because this would actually give a hint of your attitude towards the readers. Use verbs such as would, could, may, and might. These are the models that provides possibility of something. So example, it might affect the way of living of other people, or the restaurant could close because of the pandemic. And don't forget to use the qualifying adverbs such as some, several, a minority, a few, many, to avoid overgeneralization and make sure that you provide evidence to support the statement. Academic writing at its core, we have the paragraph. No matter how long our writing is, and no matter how long our paper, it has a paragraph. And a good paper comes from a good paragraph. And in order to have a good paragraph, we must remember CEBU, which stands for coherence, emphasis, brevity, and of course, unity. So first up, we have the coherence. So the paragraphs have to be coherent. This means that the parts of your paragraphs need to link to each other in logical way so that the readers can easily follow the development of your ideas and argument. Next, we have E for emphasis. So it simply means organizing ideas in order to group like ones together and creating emphasis on most important ideas. Next, we have brevity. It means brief, concise, but precise. U for unity. It must be unified, and it is important because it aids the reader in following along with the writer's ideas. A good paragraph can be narrative, in which it simply tells a story, or it can be a description, a detailed description of a particular place, person, events, or ideas, or if you want, it can also be an expository, a type of discourse that is intended to give information, to disseminate ideas, or to explore a phenomena. And it can also be an argumentative use of proposing solutions or defending a proposal or criticizing existing practices, system, and approaches. Paragraphs are very necessary and it's very crucial. That's why you need to write them well. One of the most common and specific type of academic paper is the research paper. And everybody does that. Especially if you are a student. You literally can't graduate without a research paper. And we all know that there are two types of research, a qualitative and a quantitative. And it consists of the following parts: the literature review that requires lots of citations and references, the methodology that is the systematic study of methods that are or can be or have been applied within a discipline, and findings, which is the principal outcomes of the research project. And of course, we have analysis. This is where you're going to use other reference, sources, and authors that will help to support and justify your findings. A research paper is a thing in academic that is very crucial and very bloody at the same time. That's why it is needed to be learned and studied. One of the challenges of the students is that they are having a hard time in arriving the academic paper. And the common reasons for this is it is because they don't know how to start and what to put into it. So in arriving an academic paper, you need to follow these several steps and guidelines. So first, you need to select a topic. So selecting a topic in academic paper is very important because this gives your paper the directions, and this will serve as a guide and will limit on what should be put into it. Take note, you cannot start your academic paper without selecting your topic. Next is formulate a working thesis statement. So in order for it to be easy for you to make an academic paper, then you must have the main idea that you want to work on and focus on that. Next is prepare preliminary questions. These are the questions that the readers might probably ask. So from the topic, develop questions that will help you to guide in your academic paper. Next is find sources. Find sources that will help you to explain more about your topic and sources that will help you to answer those preliminary questions. So next is take down and organize. You must take down the sources and ideas before it's gone and organize it all so that it will be easy to understand. Outline your paper. So outlining is where you get to see the flow of your topic or what is your paper is all about, and this will serve as a guide and the skeleton of your paper. Revise and edit. Always check your grammars, your spellings, and punctuation because it is very important. And lastly is check for documentation. Again, referencing is very important. Citations and giving credits to your cited sources to avoid copyright issues.